Dr. B Kalyan Chakravarthy to please come on the dais and address the gathering.
Thank you very much for inviting me. I lose no opportunity to meet and celebrate the space of education. So I was, of course, to the organizers and to all the guests who are invited here. I've been the Principal Secretary of Education in the state of Assam for about 2 years, and I've seen education very, very closely before moving on to the important field of employment, where my task is to ensure that all the youth in the state of Assam are employed. And so I try to quickly, in about the next 15 to 20 minutes, try to give as to my perspective as to what education in our country has been going through and exactly where we should take it forward. I might move a bit fast because of the paucity of time. Please do excuse me and do stop me in case I'm not making sense. We are all aware that from the time when we've been independent, the education policy took lots of twists and turns. When Mr. Nehru was the Prime Minister of the country, at that point of time, he was very, very keen that we are in a position to produce the goods like Russia did in terms of having the IITs and the IIMs and therefore the high technical kind of manpower. He invested a lot in that because he wanted the public sector. There was no private sector at that point of time to ensure that that the country produces what it needs to. So our education was really focused on the elite institutions in the country, which got established at that point of time. Briefly, we went through a sphere when we did a little bit of vocational education with the Mudaliar committee. And then, of course, came the movement across the world that education cannot be elitist. It has to be education for everyone. And so the movement started across the world, and from Brazil to all the developing countries, that why should education be the privilege of only the rich and those who can afford it? Education should be made as education for all. And by, I think, the 80s, and we had the act by the 1990, when by then we had education as a right, as a fundamental right. And every child has to be provided the right to education. But while we had this right to education, we found that many children were not able to actually go to school for various reasons, reasons of poverty, and children were actually used mostly in agricultural fields, and they used to contribute to the economy of the family. As a result, we introduced many concepts like midday meal scheme, which started in the south of India with the DMK government in Tamil Nadu, where they said the way by which we can bring the children into school was through midday meal. Thereafter, it became a national kind of a movement by which we said that we should have midday meals by which all the children can come. And therefore, right to education became, from the 90s onwards, we have the Sarva Shiksha Abhiyan, where it became a phenomena that we had so many schools where every child was given education. Somehow, along this whole path, we had education along this whole path, we were only focused on education per se, pedagogical education, and somehow we always thought of education as knowledge. In fact, in the south of India, it became so specific that you have to either be an engineer or a doctor, okay, or you have to get into college education. Somewhere we along the line, the content and the purpose of education got lost. And while this was happening, we saw that few things that I will show you here in my slide is that we saw that we were a country where we produce a lot of graduates today who are completely unemployable. I mean, you will see that graduates have passed out from their BA, their MA, and some of them PhDs, and they have zero job. I mean, they would like to do any kind of job. And when you have, as a person who is in charge of ensuring employment for the youth, if we were to give an application even for a peon or for a grade 3, we will see people who are college graduates, who are college graduates, postgraduates, and sometimes even PhDs appearing for a clerical level government position, which is which shows a terrible kind of a downside as to where education has led us. education could not have led us to a situation like this. Now, if we were to go into a city state, a small city state like Singapore, okay, which is probably like, seen as a model in Southeast Asian countries because of its standard of living, and the fact that, it had adopted probably the Western systems very fast, we will see that, that almost from the childhood itself, a child knows by class 5, class 7, class 8, like, whether he's fit to go into normal kind of education, should he take up skilling. So we see that, by the time that, we find that by the time class 12, यार थोड़ी देर के लिए छोड़ दो, बात मत करो, मैं 10 मिनट में चले जाऊंगा, ठीक है. So what we see in places, what we see in some of the places like in Singapore is that, like 50% of the children go into polytechnics and ITEs. And in fact, for the civil servants, I found there that, they actually, like, they identify at a very young age. By class 6, they identify these are guys who are really smart, or whatever, maybe the criteria. We can't say smart or not smart, but these are the people they start grooming from class 6 onwards, and they go into a different track mode. And then by class 12, they are already into a different track mode by which they get into government service. They get into diplomatic service or administration service. The complete channel itself is different. You cannot, being anybody, change that channel. Like, they say, okay, these students will go into ITI, these will go into polytechnic, this will go into college graduation. College graduation is only 25%. They have very, very clear criteria how they will go, who can go not more than 25% at any cost. And then, but there is, like, somebody showing inclination when he's doing into ITI, can get into polytechnic, can get into higher education, and vice versa. Somebody who actually has got into a BA will decide that, I would like to do something technical and end up in a technical institution. So there is a certain degree of movement. But the overall, when you look at it macro, in a macro sense, you will see that 25% is only going into, say, arts or into pure sciences. 75% is already there into a kind of education which directly leads into employment. Now, this is not isolated. Singapore is not isolated. When you look at any of the countries, you will see that almost all the countries in the West, whether it is the US, whether it is Australia, whether it is Canada, whether it is Germany, you will see that a tremendous amount of focus is there on vocationalization of education. That, a child, when he leaves his class 12, he is in a position to decide whether he wants to continue, get a job, okay, and then they are able to think and execute through their hands. They're having the skill, they have the confidence that they're doing this. At the same time, they may be studying, they might be doing literature, they may be doing history, but the guy knows, like, these are the trades that I can go into, I can earn a living, and I can also excel in this. So I'll just go to the next slide just for this, because, if we see countries like Japan, more than 90% of the population is skilled. If you look at India, we are ranked 129th out of 162 countries in terms of being skilled. Now, how does skilling help? One is, of course, it provides jobs. Secondly, your infrastructure. Today, when you're building a building, when you are having, a mason, when you're having a plumber, when you have an electrician, today we don't know when you call somebody to your house, whether that fellow knows anything or not. He will do a job and go away, and after 10 days, you'll see that the electrician has left you with shocks. Or the plumbing thing doesn't work. It has again started leaking. The roof is leaking. The water is leaking. You have no idea as to, like, when we are building a bridge, do we have skilled manpower building the bridge? Do we have skilled manpower building our houses? Do we have skilled manpower, like, putting the lights in our house? Or just about everything. When you go to these countries, you'll see that people are taking pride in saying that I'm a good barman. He knows how to make 20 different kinds of cocktails. He knows different kinds, he knows, like, what suits you, what's your taste. And he takes pride in saying that, I'm a barman. because he studied in it. He's got specialization. We know about tea tasters, but do we really give that kind of that kind of a prestige or a position in a society for a barman? We will look down on that profession. Acha, theek hai, we look down on those professions. Like if you're a failure in your college education, school education, theek hai, you can take up some profession like that. We don't have that dignity of labor into the different professions that we have in our society. Therefore, we see that India, because of our mindset, we are almost like at the very bottom of skilling in the entire world. We rank about 129th or 130th in 162 countries. And let me say that if you look at a direct proportionality, the amount of skilling that is there in the manpower is directly related to the development of that country. You will see that countries like Japan, I mean, just about everybody is skilled, right? So here, when we look at our factories, when we look at our tea gardens, when we look at our masons, when we look at our every sector, you will see people have just got in. They probably learn on the job, but they don't have any idea as to, they've been assessed to the skills of the job. And therefore, our quality of manpower, quality of infrastructure, quality of jobs, therefore, is much lower. That's what this first slide is all about. The second thing, of course, I try to show in various countries, like whether it's in Japan, in Australia, as to what all is the way in which these countries have, over a period of time, taken a far leap through their education system and through the way they have skilled their manpower far ahead of us. Now, if you look at our country, out of 120 crores population, 130 crores population, we have a labor force about 50 crores. 90% of our labor force is in the unorganized sector, and mostly it is unskilled. And at best, if you see, about 20% of our country has skilling as far as education is concerned. Now, we talk about the new education policy. The new education policy tries to make a difference to this. We are trying to realign. Therefore, from Nehru onwards, through vocational education to right to education, now we have come to a different spirit of the new education policy, where we are saying that we will bring in vocational education right from childhood onwards. From childhood onwards, and then we are trying to in a way make it, probably in the last slide I'll try to show how there will be credits. From class 1 to class 4, a child will get 1 credit. What is it that he'll be exposed to? What is happening? Class 6, 7, 8, what is he exposed to? He will get about 2 or 3 credits. Then in 9, 10, 11, 12, there will be vocational education by which he'll get a certain number of credits. After that, the number of credits will increase, and we will see that whether it is technical education or whether it's arts education, everybody will have to get credits as far as vocational education is concerned. So the NEP has this kind of framework, where we, of course, we talk about Lok Vidya initially, indigenous kind of traits we talk about. Then we will see that there is bagless training which is there, exposure of children to carpentry or to whatever kind of vocational education. And then a child from class 8, 9 onwards, whether it is the different kinds of skilling, they will start getting not just skills, just like you pass an examination in your like in English or in maths. Similarly, you'll have to pass and be assessed on vocational education and pass that particular test. It's not that we include it in the curriculum for the sake of inclusion. It will be as important in passing in this examination as passing in any other examination. That is what will happen. Credit systems will be there, assessment systems will be there, and then of course, as we go up, there will be a sort of the credit systems will be made in such a way that you can move from an arts to this. You can be doing history, and you could have 1 or 2 vocational courses that you do. But in any case, we'll have to have 50% of all the students who are coming out of colleges to be skilled as far as education is concerned. So what kind of models do we adopt? Of course, there is I'll quickly, this is a lot of things that I'm trying to put into one slide. But what we feel is that every department, whether it's agriculture department, rural development department, urban development department, okay, various departments have skilling components, but there is no convergence of all these skilling departments. Now, this is something that you must try and understand, that there is skilling in various sectors of the economy, but there is no framework, there is no convergence, there is no method of knowing that if I do skilling, is it going to be recognized against my Aadhaar number? My skilling, is it going to be added into my bank account? Will it be shown that I'm a skilled carpenter? Do I have this many number of credits? My expertise, is it known or not? So there is a need for convergence between various departments, and just as against your name you have a bank account of money, you will have to have against your name not just your education but your skilling components added to it. What amount of credits you have in skilling? Therefore, there is a need for convergence among various departments. And for this, of course, you'll need digital technologies. And it's not very difficult, but that's going to happen. And the third thing is, you need to have teachers who have to understand what is skilling. Till now, they've been teaching only subjects. Now, are teachers of ours experienced as far as skilling is concerned? No, absolutely zero. So there is a massive need for capacity building. Now, the world is changing. We are having a lot of manpower, but we don't have the manpower which will actually suit the needs of the future technologies. So, as in my last slide, I said that if the change is happening in the economy is not matched by the change in the education system, is not matched by the change that the teachers have to bring into their pedagogy, into their understanding the needs of the economy, then we will die as education system. The education system, the rate of change in the education system in terms of the teachers' capacities and capabilities have to be equal or better than the systems that are changing in the economy. The economic changes, the future jobs, the future skills have to be like adopted by the teachers, and they have to actually set the trends. And that massive capacity building has to take place. And there has to, of course, we have to, of course, give the teachers that kind of an outlook. They may not know, sitting in different places in Tejpur, maybe Imphal, maybe in Nagaland, how would you know what is happening across the world? And therefore, there is a need for exposure, there is a need for capacity building. There is a need, of course, to tie up higher institutions to the schools like polytechnics, ITIs, IITs to schools, and integration of the technical institutions to schools is something that we have to do, and build a model by which the teachers can digitally keep on improving their capacities in terms of skilling. So, and also the mindset that if a fellow is a carpenter, if a fellow is a plumber, if a fellow is something, he is lower than a normal college graduate. That mindset will have to change, right? You will not come across this type of mindset. If somebody is doing something in the West, he would probably not feel the same. He'll say, okay, I am now a bus driver, or I'm a plumber, but tomorrow he may be a college graduate. So there is no stigma attached to schooling which we have in our society today. Of course, what are the future skills? We will have a lot of future skills going forward. Skills like, we will have to build. See, one of the silver bullets, I think, as far as the education system is concerned, and which I have always been insisting also in the state of Assam, is that we will definitely need to have internet. We have to build our internet. Second is we have to build a connection between objects, which is happening across the world. But this is something I'm saying future. You will see that, whether it's your mobile, whether it's your house, whether it's your AC, they'll all be connected to your mobile. Whether it's your vehicles, whether it's your music systems, everything is connected. So we will have to build our internet base. We'll have to make we talk about Hyderabad, saying that you don't need a hotspot. You don't need personal hotspots or etc. When your mobile is there, the entire city is a hotspot. So you will have free internet for everyone. I mean, it's a dream, right? Today we have to pay for a data pack. When your mobiles are completely free internet and it's 5G and the information is flowing, and that's going to happen sometime in the future. There will be free flow of internet, and then all our devices will get connected at some point of time. There'll be delivery platforms like you have Uber, and today you have vehicles, etc. on digital services. Tomorrow you'll have applications. So the future is going to be a digital future, and therefore this is something. These are the skills that, of course, along with the indigenous skills that we have, right, from bamboo making to the digital skills, is something that the teachers should be aware of. So what's the plan of action for the future? The plan of action would be, like, of course, first of all, we need to make policies by which we have this connect between what we are learning today and what we do as far as vocational education is concerned. We have to do a digital integration, actually monitoring, developing teachers' capacities, and finally we'll have to find models as to how we ensure that the students who come out are actually linked to counseling, to employment, how we ensure that a student who comes out is complete. He is not just somebody that you're teaching for the sake of teaching and let him go into the society. You are ensuring that he is actually performing as a responsible citizen in society. And therefore, like, the planning has to be right from education to skilling to employment. And there is, of course, a need for a policy framework, for skilling universities, for a lot of things in terms of data integration, etc. That will happen. So one last slide I wanted to show before I conclude. If Mangani was there, I had WhatsApped it to her just now. Is it there? Okay. Do you have that last slide which I had asked for? Okay. So what I wanted all the educational institutions to know, yeah, this is the one, is that we always think as to how do we do it finally. We need to have a framework in order to do this, right? This is the kind of a framework, that is a draft framework we are trying to develop, and hopefully, like, right from, as you can see, from foundation, from class 3 of a child up to, like, a PhD degree, how do we really develop, the skilling? How many credits do we give? And what kind of a framework is there so that we develop a child holistically? Now, I talk to you only about vocational education, but into vocational education and to holistic development, we'll have to bring in also culture and sports, which are very important components of this education. But when your report cards are there, your report cards can't be just history, maths, and physics or chemistry. It's got to have a component of these vocational skills of sports and culture also, so that a child, when you actually, like, finally deliver a child, you take the responsibility for the child to be the future of the nation. Thank you. So this was a short lecture. Uh, I wanted to say that I hope that we will together, of course, through the deliberations and all the educationalists who are here, take this forward in the manner and the spirit that is necessary. Thank you.